And I want to welcome everyone to this Alpha Mare Leadership webinar. I'm Evelyn McKelvey. I'm an executive coach and founder of Equine Coach, which is a coaching practice focusing on leadership and presence. I'm also the author of The Executive Horse, 21st Century Leadership Lessons for Horses, for people. Leadership lessons from horses. And my co-host today is Carrie Gallant. Carrie, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure, love to. And welcome to everybody who's joining us or listening to our recording today as we kick off another of our series on conversations with women leaders about power and women. And my name's Carrie Gallant, as Evelyn said, and my work is primarily with a lot of the powerful women. I specialize in helping women to master the art of negotiation and influence. I also work with organizations in negotiation as well as conversational intelligence, a brand new field in which I am thrilled to be certified, and looking forward to our conversations. You know, a little bit about why we're even looking at Alpha Mare Leadership. Where does the title come from? And Evelyn and I both have some history of working with horses, and Evelyn's already shared that she is the equine coach. She's the master of horse language and translating that to human language. And you know, something that we've noticed about leadership when it comes to the herd, a herd of horses, is the role of the alpha mare. Now, to the untrained lay eye, you might look at a herd of horses and surmise or expect that the stallion will be the head of the herd. And you'd be more than likely you'd be incorrect in many ways. Yes, the stallion has some very key roles that he will fulfill in terms of safety and lots of other things with the herd. And the alpha mare plays a very different role, and her leadership comes across quite different. Rather than coming across as the aggressive, thrusting away the outsiders, as it were, an alpha mare tends to lead more from a position of quiet strength. So you may not even be aware of which mare amongst the herd would be the alpha mare until you understand the relationships of the horses in the herd and what role that the alpha mare can play. And so our interest in the alpha mare from a leadership perspective is in this role of how it can relate to leadership, as well as how women can relate to leadership through an alpha mare lens, and particularly in our conversation about power and how those various things can come to pass. So I'm excited that we're here again today to further the conversation with Regina Huber. And I'm going to pass it back to my co-host Evelyn for a fabulous introduction of Regina and her very varied history and what I'm going to call a multi-passionate business life.
Yeah, you could say that, right?
Even a polymath, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Yes, Regina is joining us from New York City today. Regina's got a very serious resume. She speaks 5 languages and has years of corporate experience on 3 continents, not to mention 8 years of experience as an entrepreneur in Latin America. Regina's a transformational leadership coach for business women, a power shifter, a diversity and co-creation advocate, a speaker with a passion for dance, and author of Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. With her system, Powerful Leadership Transformation, she guides professional women to make a power shift, accelerate their careers, and step into their roles as leaders with a powerful mindset and presence. With her help, companies create powerful women leaders that do not drop out on their way to the top. So there's a great overlap here in terms of our common interests, Carrie and Regina and myself. I'm also involved in learning conversational intelligence, as I believe, Regina, you are as well.
Yes, I am as well.
And an advocate through Take the Lead. Have I got that right?
Yes, Take the Lead Women. I'm also involved with them. Yes, that's correct.
So as usual, our format in our conversations with women about power is to ask a series of questions and around the topic. So I'm going to kick off, Regina, by asking you if there's anything you'd like to add in terms of introducing yourself, and then answer our first question, which is, what is your definition of power?
So first of all, I just want to say I'm super honored to be here today. I think this is an excellent fit. As you just said, we have very common interests, not such a common background apart from the conversational intelligence studies. And that's so exciting because that's how we see that we are all unique and we all bring something very unique to the table. And that's something that I actually work with my clients on, but I'm going to talk about that a little later. So you asked me about power. When I think of power, I mean inner power. And it's the power to create something, the power to achieve what we set out for. It's the power to live the life, the career, and the success that's aligned with our aspirations and with our goals and our vision. It's really the power to live our life aligned with our purpose. And it's the power that we all have inside of ourselves. So we all have this unlimited power inside of ourselves, and oftentimes we forget to connect with it. And when we are disconnected from our power, what happens is it's almost as if we are using a TV set without plugging in the power cord, right? Because power energy cannot flow in that case. So it's really important for us to always stay connected or reconnect to our inner power and to get that juice flowing and that power flowing inside of ourselves. And there are various ways of doing that, of course. Many of you may have heard about power posing and Amy Cuddy's TED Talk about power posing, her research. And for myself, I actually like power dancing because, as Evelyn said before, I have a huge passion for dance and I just love it. And for me, it's a little challenging to just stand there in a power pose for 2 minutes without moving. So I love the dance aspect of power dancing, and I've come up with power dancing for myself. And what I would do is I put on a powerful song with powerful lyrics, something that speaks to me, and then dance with big, big movements. And there are many other ways of doing that, and I'm sure we have another chance to talk about those later.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that. And I just want to share, Regina, I love that you incorporate dance into that, because I have a playlist that I recommend to my clients to use before they go into a negotiation that is about getting the music to flow and inspire them. So I might suggest now that they actually add the dance movements to it too. That would be a lot of fun for people.
Yeah. Dance also, in conversational intelligence, we talk a lot about oxytocin, and dance also releases oxytocin. Dancing releases oxytocin, singing. So all of these activities really add that positive vibe to it,
Yeah.
So that's really awesome.
And that's great. Oxytocin is definitely one of the inner resources that we have available to us to maintain a connection to power.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. When and how did you first become conscious of your own power, Regina?
Well, there were some instances in my earlier life when the universe sort of winked at me and said, hey, you've got power. But at the time, I wasn't so fully aware of it. So, for example, when I was 27, I was working at the Boston Consulting Group in Madrid, and I had just moved there the year before. And I was offered a leadership position. And that's when others saw the leadership potential in me before I even saw it. And that was quite a surprise at the time. And I took the opportunity and I made the best of it, but I wasn't really fully aware of my power at the time. So later on, I studied a bunch of different things like holistic healing modalities, mindset practices. And that's when I was also growing my spiritual awareness. And that's when I was able to take true responsibility for my life. And with that comes a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't fully grasp how powerful I really was. So I had to go through an extremely painful experience with a fraudulent business partner in Brazil just about 7 years ago that really opened my eyes. And what happened is this experience cost me not only my business and a bunch of money, but also destroyed my confidence completely. And at the time, I felt super paralyzed, and really, it felt almost as if the floor had been pulled out from underneath my feet. And it took me a while to get out of my victim mode. But there was a moment when I realized that I had to really step into my power and reconnect with my power. And that's when I was able to clean up the mess and start a new life, and move to a different country, start a new life and a new business. And I think that was really, when I made this conscious effort to connect with my power in a very, very difficult situation, that's when I really consistently and persistently was working with my mind and with my energy to step into that power. That's when I realized how powerful we really are, and what difficult situations we can move through when we connect with our power.
That's lovely. Thank you, Regina. And I really hear how you tapped into that inner resource, that resource of inner power to pull you out of that difficult situation.
Yeah, it's really a precious gift, and we must honor it and use it, and it's not always easy, but sometimes you just really, I like to say, no one can take that power away from you. The inner power is the one power that you always have. You just really need to know how to tap into it.
Great, thank you. So a slight different take on the question about from being conscious of your own power. What can you tell us about when you became aware of yourself as a leader?
Okay, so as I said before, I was in several different leadership positions with BCG and in other capacities, and I was really always respected by my peers, by my team, by my leadership team. But did I truly feel like a leader during that time? Maybe not, because I was not really 100% aware of my own potential. And see, leadership doesn't come with a position. Leadership is an attitude. You breathe it, you live it. It's a responsibility, and it's. I always certainly lived up to that responsibility, also in the earlier years, and I always try to be a role model. And I felt that really big commitment towards others, but what's different now is that I feel that commitment towards myself. So that's how I see it differently. So it's an integral part of my purpose to step into that power, to use my power and to use my leadership, not only the skills that I have acquired, but also what's always been given to me. And I think that's how it's changed. So now I actually love speaking and teaching, because I can inspire other women to step into their power and into their leadership roles as well. And in this way also actually live a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you. And just a slight twist, another kind of tweak. I'm curious about what you think about the imposter syndrome and how that affects, perhaps affected yourself. I was hearing perhaps a little of that in what you just talked about, and even in terms of how it can really affect many women. We're hearing a lot about imposter syndrome today, and also the reverse now. We're also hearing more about the entitlement syndrome too. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the imposter syndrome. So many women believe, for example, when they are, let's take an example of a new business owner. So many women have a problem while they're building a business, while they're not making money, they think they're not successful. So they do not really acknowledge their own skills and everything they've already accumulated in terms of experience, background, all their accomplishments so far. They don't really see them enough and acknowledge themselves enough for that. And they sort of have to see it in the money first. That's what I see oftentimes with clients. So that's on the entrepreneurial side. And in the corporate environment, I oftentimes see that women just bluntly underestimate themselves. And they think they are not qualified enough. They are not... in a word, they're not enough. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. And they believe that if they toot their own horn or if they brag, to call it something, or if they really stand out with their unique qualities and they ask to be acknowledged or compensated, authentic. Oh, yes. Okay.
We're getting a little bit of freezing.
So what I'm seeing is that they think
your video was freezing up on my end. Evelyn, were you experiencing that as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you could just perhaps,
to really
repeat the
acknowledge
last
themselves
sentence or two,
and to show to others what they have accomplished and what they can still accomplish, because as we know, men are acknowledged for their potential, right? While women talk about their past more than what they can do in the future. And I think when they cannot prove something, they think it's not valid. And that, I think, relates to what you just called the imposter syndrome. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just on a funny note,
that is weird.
There's an imposter here for you right now, and that's your photograph is standing in for your video at the moment. So I'm not sure if you can change anything on your end, because we'd love to see you in real time. Your photo is beautiful as well.
Yes.
But it's standing in for you. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It could be a band. There you go. You're back. You're back. Thank you. It could be a bandwidth issue.
Yeah.
I suspect.
And I'm usually fine. I use Zoom a lot and other platforms, so I should, it's weird.
Try and force it one way or the other. I don't know. We haven't had this experience before with this platform.
Let's make the best of it.
Been fairly reliable. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll persist for sure. Yeah.
So,
so what has
like
helped me a lot on my path is my holistic studies and my mindset studies.
You touched upon this a little bit already, Regina, but can you tell us what you have done yourself to develop your own personal power?
And when I moved through this crisis, I took a lot of sessions with other experts, and I very consciously worked on my limiting beliefs, my limiting emotions, and I still do that because it's a never-ending process. So every single day, as soon as I go into a limiting situation with my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions, I analyze that situation and I try to turn it around and replace these beliefs and emotions with positive and more empowering thought patterns and emotions. And I do this on an ongoing basis. It's something that's a lifelong process. It will never stop. There's always more, but I've certainly made huge progress through this work. And I always go back and work with other experts. I am the expert in this area. I do a lot of subconscious work in many different ways, but I'm not the expert with myself. I always go back. We all have our blind spots. We need to work with other people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to mention a few people here. Rosa Parks, for sure. Rosa Parks was a very powerful human rights activist, very courageous.
We did lose you again for a minute.
Oprah Winfrey, for obvious reasons, you know, she's very inspiring. She's built an empire.
And why?
Another example that not so many people might mention is the women in Iceland who rebuilt the country after a financial crash. And the reason why I love their story so much is because of something you mentioned earlier, Carrie. They brought in feminine values, and that's how they fixed the country and rebuilt everything, and how they, you know, cleaned up the mess and built a better system. And they also replaced the cliche that women in power, I should say, had to act and think like men, which is really not true, because what we need more of is a balance, right? So, and then another woman that I admire very much is my dear friend Alicia Silberg. She is the UN Global Champion for Women's Empowerment in Entrepreneurship. And she's also the leader of a global women's group that I'm very honored to be a part of. And she does a lot of work. She's from South Africa. She's just amazing. She steps in for so many entrepreneurs to help them fund their businesses and all these other important things. And the reason why I admire these people and why they're my role models is because these are very courageous women leaders, and courage inspires me. And people who stand in integrity and who stand up for freedom inspire me, because freedom and integrity are two of my core values.
Lovely,
That's
lovely.
that's
Yeah,
lovely.
and I love that you brought that into your connection with them through what's important to you and what you value and what you admire, and in your own value system. I think that's such a key part of that inner power that you spoke about earlier, is really connecting with personal values and allowing that thread of integrity and alignment and authenticity to drive us forward. And I also just wanted to share that in front of me on my desk, I have this stone. I'm not sure if you can see it, that says courage.
Yes, and Carrie, I love that this is a heart, because we
it's
talk
a heart
a lot of
because
so much
courage
about
is from the
mindset,
French word for heart.
But I really also love talking about
I think
our
that I often say that too. That
I think it's just as important,
not just for women, but especially for women. I think sometimes we have to grab a bag of courage and do the thing that scares us. And
yeah.
Yeah. And I want to bring that back a little bit to working with horses, because that's one of the primary conditions or skills, if you will, that clients face when they go to walk into a round pen.
Embodiment. So I talk a lot about body conscious presence actually in my work. So definitely.
So embodied.
And I find this work that you do so fascinating. I have to experience
it. Fundamental too. I think what you're talking about in terms of your own inner experience and source of power. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too. Yeah.
We'll have to get you up here sometime to do it. And I think it's there's such a resonance. We all I'm sure everyone's experienced when when somebody walks into a room that you're already in, how their energy. What they're tapped into. Are they tapped into their mind? Are they tapped into a negative emotion? Are they tapped into generosity? Whatever it is, you can feel the energy change.
And take the lead
and
women,
so
the
that comes from the embodiment.
Uses
the mind,
exactly
heart,
these two terms:
power body, and
power
how
over.
we're embodying leadership. How we're embodying a sense of power and power to versus power over. That kind of notion as well. So thank you for bringing that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Evelyn and I are quite familiar with Gloria Felt's work and her originating book on power back a few years ago that started the game before the Lean In activity and Take the Lead started. It's a very powerful woman. I admire myself quite a lot. So when we're thinking about, we're talking through these notions of power, and especially as women leaders, tapping into the inner power, and then there's the outer manifestations of power. And we know that we have a history in our world with having different expectations for men and for women. You alluded to that earlier. Our notions of what competence means tends to be a fairly masculine definition of competence, for example. And and how expectations of women in the workplace, how expectations of women leaders
Well, first of
versus
all,
male
in the
leaders
past,
tend
I
to be
used to
quite
be
different.
extremely
And we only
focused
have to look
on
at
what
last
other
year's election
people
to see
thought
a
of
number of
me
things
and what
how
they
that was
expected
playing
from
out.
me.
And so we're
I
curious
know
from
that's
your
important
perspective,
in a
your
way because
personal
we certainly want to
relationship
meet
with
our
that.
clients'
How have you managed
expectations.
other
We want
people's
to maybe
expectations of
even
you?
exceed our clients' expectations. That's certainly true. But now what matters most to me are actually the expectations I have for myself. And I know that we can't make it right for every single person. We are all different. And as such, we have all different expectations. And, I want to go back to the courage concept, because it really takes courage to stand out and be different and to show our, what I call the distinctive uniqueness. And really focus on what we bring to the table and focus on the value we provide, and rather than how does that comply with other people's expectations, right? So when we're fully aware of the value of our work, there's not so much of a need to worry about other people's expectations, and there's also not as much of a need to compete. And I think we all agree in this circle that we want to co-create rather than compete. So this is a very important aspect of what are the expectations of others versus my own expectations. What can I bring to the table? How does that all play together, right? And the important thing, I think, is to do the right thing for ourselves as we're serving others. So that's how I see it, really.
Lovely. I love that, the combination of the two. And yeah, I think the move that we're seeing, not I wouldn't say it's a global move, but there's certainly a lot of movement towards collaborative style leadership, collaboration in leadership, and that's certainly what draws Evelyn and I to the analogy and work with horses with the alpha mare in that style of leadership, with the herd being a primary concern of hers, and also how that's operating. And I think we can see how that can operate in the workplace as well. Yeah. And so there's a lot of there's often this kind of push-pull that happens in the workplace for many women leaders, and I so appreciate your own personal take on that, to come back into self and what's right for you. It's kind of that, like that analogy of putting the oxygen mask on first. You need to take care of yourself and be in your own power first before you can help others through actions and etc. So being very clear on those things is a huge source of power. But this conflict that we're often in as women in powerful roles, again, dealing with, as you say, other people's expectations are still important because they play a role in terms of how we're going to interact with others. And there's this risk that many women are concerned with, of appearing pushy,
okay, so first of all,
too
let's
aggressive,
face it, there's bias,
or
right? Bias
overbearing, or
and
another
oftentimes
B
it's
word
unconscious, and that's the tricky
might
part. So
be
there's a
floating out
lot
there.
of
And
lot
so,
of bias
from your experience in the work that
training,
you've done with your
but is it
clients,
really
when do you
effective?
think
Oftentimes
women
it's
are
actually
most at risk
counterproductive, I believe.
of
So it's
being
not
seen
easy
as
to change
overbearing?
that. But what's
And
the
what do
part
you
we
recommend
can
that they
change?
do?
So while it might be true that some men and also some women might feel threatened by strong women, I believe that oftentimes when women are perceived as overbearing, as you called it, they are not actually authentic in their feminine presence. So they're not necessarily standing in their feminine beingness, and they try to emulate male behavior rather than being authentic as who they are. And emulating a behavior unaligned with who we are does never works in our favor, really. It's ineffective, it's exhausting, we're playing a role, it's really exhausting, it's not fulfilling, it's unsatisfying. Oh, I'm so sorry. Something got out. Is it the wind? It's crazy. I'm sorry. So funny. So what was I saying? So I was saying, it's exhausting to play a role all the time. And it's also really not what we need. So what we need is more of a balance in both business and politics, right? We need a balance of the different leadership styles. We need a balance of the different types of diversity, so we can all co-create and make the best of everything that we all bring to the table. Right? That's the beauty of diversity, and that's also what the companies are seeing nowadays. When they bring more diversity into their leadership teams, their bottom line actually improves. So I believe that women are stronger when they stand in their feminine power, when they are authentic and they dare to be authentic. And I know it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to stand your woman in a world that was created by men. It's a little bit of a balancing act sometimes. But let's just go back to the women in Iceland. I mean, they did it. They brought in feminine values. They took over the country, basically. They seized power in politics, in banking, in business, everywhere where it was really important at the time. And they brought in these feminine values, what they call the female trend. And the men actually started listening to them. Why? Because they saw the results, and the results were really good. So with it, I think they also did away with this cliche that women had to actually, that I mentioned earlier, act and think like men when they were in powerful positions. And just recently I read a quote about somebody a woman from the UK who travels to Iceland for business occasionally. And she said that was the country where she could really be herself, where she was not looked down at as a woman, where she was treated as equal, and where she just felt completely comfortable as a woman, acting as a woman.
That's very, very. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah. I just want to share a quick fact that occurred to me when you were talking about the women from Iceland. For anybody who follows CrossFit, for example, the CrossFit Games, the women from Iceland are dominating, and they've been dominating the field for the past couple of years. It's amazing, and they're just incredibly strong and physically strong and powerful. It's quite something to see them dominate from such a small country to dominate
down because I have a lot of
what's become a global phenomenon.
But I want to mention three things, if that's okay, if we have time for three. So first of all, focus on
our last question, Regina,
to the
is
table.
What is your advice to women?
As long as we are looking left and right, we are
power.
wasting so much precious energy. So stop comparing yourself. You are unique. You have a unique role. No one could ever take that role. No one has the same talent, skills, story, background, expertise, whatever you bring to the table as you have. So we are all unique, and we all have a unique role in this world. And that's why distinctive uniqueness is a really integral part of my powerful leadership transformation. And for those of you who want to learn more about it, you can catch a glimpse for free in a video series, and it's online. It's at transformyourperformance.com/PLT videos, like in powerful leadership transformation. So transformyourperformance.com/PLT videos. And a second aspect of this powerful leadership transformation is also to be fully present in your body and in your energy. We need to be fully present in both to stand in our power. So in my work, I teach women how to enhance their business presence by being more body conscious and more energy conscious, right? I call it body conscious, but it includes our energy. So they can actually feel more powerful and also be perceived as more powerful. As you said before, you notice when people walk into the room, what what energy they're in when they walk into it. So we can really prepare for this situation consciously, and it doesn't take long. It takes a few minutes. I do it every morning, but before any challenging situations, I do it again. And it really impacts our business relationships and therefore our success. And the third thing I want to mention is to always remember to connect to that unlimited power inside of you. So every single day, book some time onto your calendar to tap into your power with specific exercises. They could be very simple exercises, takes 2 to 3 minutes. They can be done on the train, on this, on the subway, on the bus. And even just if you think you do not have time for that, even just focusing on this power already helps, because as we all know, what we focus on expands. So we could try this with a very simple exercise. If you just want to put a hand, and I'm going to stand up for this so you can see it, on our solar plexus area, that's our stomach area, right? So you put a hand on your solar plexus, and this is our personal power center. And then close your eyes for a moment and breathe into this area. So allow your power to expand as you focus on it and observe what this feels like. Only this very simple exercise already makes us oftentimes change our posture slightly, right? And really feel more powerful. And you could also experiment with this. You could experiment with your heart power center or your belly power center. So really experiment and observe what it feels like and what makes you feel powerful. Do the power dance. Find a way to align your power centers, your energy. So there's a lot to say about this, really, and I wish we had more time. I know I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, yes. Yes, I would love that. Yes, I would love that. And and I also, for those of you who want to go a little bit deeper with this,
We're doing well. We're doing well. We're just going to have you back, Regina. We'll just have to get you up for a live experience
too. And in this book,
we should book another time to collaborate on
prepare mentally,
something with the
physically, and energetically for challenging situations. And so these challenging situations could be speaking, job interviews, sales conversations, whatever it is that you usually face in your business, in your career, and whenever you need to stand in your power. You could even use these for dating. It works just as well.
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Fantastic.
yes.
We'll make sure to share that link to your book and your URLs out as well, Regina. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I can't help but think again about working with the horses, because actually, Regina, this area is where we can influence horses from here, just with our energy. So it appears that horses read our energy, and this is the most powerful origin from which we can influence a horse. So we can move a horse by directing energy from our solar plexus to the right spot on the horse's body. So I love that you brought that up, because we forget about that. We're walking around living up here in our prefrontal cortices, and it's as though our bodies are simply vehicles to transport our brains around. And it's increasingly becoming, I think, an issue for people.
And also, as long as we are at least in the prefrontal cortex,
our reality
it's not that bad. But once we go into the other brain areas where the fight and flight reaction happens,
so I love that you're getting back to that whole embodiment again of
in our
where the power source is. It's not in our brain.
Reaction mode, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like in those moments where we're really not accessible. We're not accessible to ourselves. We're not accessible to others. You know, Evelyn as Evelyn was bringing us back to the horse world again, and you know, I want to share that the first time I saw Evelyn do this, and the first time I experienced it for myself, was incredible because I was not even touching the horse. So, for example, you can move a horse. What Evelyn has taught me. And I used to ride a number of years ago. I never knew any of this. So I was obviously impacting my horse left, right, and center without even being aware of it. But being able to project that presence and that solar plexus power center and have a horse, be able to move a horse around a pen, to draw that horse to walk with me side by side without laying a hand on the horse. It's phenomenal. And so it's so powerful because it's that visceral, embodiment, realization of how I'm impacting people around me every day. It doesn't have to be a horse. We all are impacted by this. We just are so completely unaware of it. Those little moments where we're changing the dynamics in a conversation. And going back to your very, very first point, how are we even doing that with ourselves?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So.
I love this. I'm going to do more of it. And beautiful ring, by the way. When you stood up and showed us, I said, I love her ring.
Love for
fantastic
for everybody in the audience to experiment.
I'm a jewelry hound,
with,
as you can see. I love interesting pieces.
Their
so that's great.
power tools or techniques are, and share with us. So if there's any way of doing that,
else,
if anybody
Regina,
has any questions, of course. And I'm always curious to find out about other people's experiences with power and how they relate to power. And you know, you mentioned Carrie, power over versus power to. It's also important to observe that many people are not so comfortable with the concept of power just because they think of the abuse of power or misuse of power. That's not the type of power we're talking about today. So that's why I said, you know, it doesn't really come with a position. Yes, we can exert more power, and hopefully in a positive way when we are in a powerful position. But, you know, it's really all about creating positive change and not about abusing any type of power. And the more we women also take on those powerful leadership roles, the more impact we can have in that sense. So that's also why I mostly work with women, although I also have worked with men, but they certainly oftentimes have a greater need, and our society has a greater need to have more women in power, so we can again have that balance. So because women are not better than men, but they're different, and they bring a different way of thinking to the table and a different way of feeling. And I think that's very important. So yes, I'd love to hear also from other people if there's any possibility or, you know, opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I do want to mention that that this video will be available on alphamareleadership.com website, where other videos in previous webinars are available. We'll also have, it's also available on Expertise TV. And,
and please also feel free to email me if you have any, if you'd like to get in contact directly also. And I'd certainly circle back also with your questions to Carrie and to Evelyn. So my email is regina@transformingperformance.com.
Questions about it.
And always here to support.
Yeah. Yeah. Carrie, do you want to give out your email address?
My email? Oh, yes, sure. You can reach me at carrie@gallantsolutionsinc.com.
And mine is info@equinecoach.ca. Now, our next webinar, we do these webinars every fourth Wednesday of the month. So our next one is for April 26th. Carrie, do you know if we've signed up
I
our
was
next
not,
guest?
no, she's been my contact. I have not been able to confirm. She's actually been ill
Well,
for the
thank
last
you both,
week,
Evelyn
so
and
she's
Carrie.
not
Yes, I
accessing
have
her
very much enjoyed this
calendar at the moment. So
conversation, and
Okay.
I hope
we'll,
there's
we'll
going to be
be
more.
thrilled to announce that very shortly, I hope.
And I
As
Yes,
she gets
great.
better.
Yeah.
yes,
Well, we are at time now,
yes.
and I want to thank you so much, Regina. It's
Yes,
been a
thank you.
wonderful time.
Yes, thank you. And hopefully I can experience your work live in person. Someday. Okay. Have a wonderful rest of your day,
Yeah, I do.
everybody.
Definitely join us over on the Facebook
Thank
page
you.
too, and
Bye.
feel free to wade in, Regina. I would love to have you connect with us there too.
Yeah. I hope so. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
You too.
You as well. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.